You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller. Hello, and welcome to episode 345 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I am Stephen Seagraves, joined today by Fosma Moon and Seth Miller. Gentlemen.
Hello, hello.
What's going on?
Well, my laptop's not overheating, so I got that going for me.
Hey, listen, it's not that hard to put an ice pack on the back. It's almost
and Foz is considering a move to Pennsylvania. I mean, there's tons of things going on.
This is what I get for joining the call late. Wait, what?
He's got reasons. He wants to fly out of Philly. That's really it.
United's pissed me off enough. It's time for a new airline to piss me off.
But Americans pissed you off.
How long is your drive? I mean, yeah, I guess you're just far enough that driving down to Philly's annoying, huh?
It's a 10-minute difference. I was telling Stephen earlier, like, my last few trips have been out of Philly simply because parking is much cheaper and it's a lot less hassle of an airport. Because you pull right up to the terminal, you walk, you're at the terminal, you walk right in, and you're out. Security is never a question. And if one security checkpoint's bad, you just go to the next one.
Is it all connected behind security?
It is now all connected all the way through from A through F now.
Oh, that's nice. And does American offer... Go ahead.
Sorry, F still requires the shuttle bus, though, right?
Nope, it is now connected.
Okay. Is there a shuttle bus, though?
There is still a shuttle bus, so because most of A is in B, C, and A. So there's a shuttle that runs between... I think you pick it up between C and D, just outside of C.
Okay.
And it'll take you to F, but now if you have the time, you can actually do the walk all the way across, from
yeah, okay, that makes sense. Just when I was connecting through it a few months back, I still saw the buses and no construction, so I wasn't sure, but yeah, makes sense.
And F's the commuter,
Regionals.
like regional jets, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I got a question then. American, like what do they operate domestically? Do they operate everywhere out of there, or is it like limited on where you can get nonstop?
I mean, they have a pretty extensive network. I mean, you can definitely get all the, I'd say, tier 1, tier 2 cities.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, remember that, certainly in the normal times, Philly is the transatlantic connecting hub, so the point is to have more smaller cities connecting through there than, say, their New York operations, which are borderline anemic in some ways.
Interesting. I've only flown through Philly once, so I might have to try it again. So we got random topics this week. What is going on with the WestJet KLM codeshare stuff?
There is one.
Oh.
It's exciting. KLM is launching or launched, it's around right now, service from Calgary to Amsterdam.
Oh.
And so as part of that, wants to have onward connections on the WestJet code. And so they've signed on for 18 cities across half a dozen European countries to be able to get those connections. So like some stuff in Germany, Spain, France, etc. It's making people wonder about broader connection or broader partnerships beyond just, a code share, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, is this the first step towards getting WestJet into SkyTeam?
Well, it probably isn't the first given the Delta partnership.
Yeah.
But, and that's also sort of an interesting situation. They backed away from the joint venture because of the LaGuardia slots. And now are moving back towards that again, maybe. Or they're going to try to relaunch it a different way, maybe, I think I saw the other day.
Wow. So that if they do that, then are they going to give in and give up some of their LaGuardia? I mean, part of that was they have to give up some gates, right? Or some slots?
Some slots at LaGuardia. I would imagine they'll structure it differently or come up with a different plan. Maybe somehow. I don't know, try to exclude that market. But
Yeah. Interesting. JetBlue is already cutting London a little bit, trimming, I guess, their London schedule.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry to say, 96 unique destinations from Philadelphia currently loaded in schedules on American Metal.
Okay. Decent amount.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess you want to know what the difference is between that and United out of Newark?
It's probably pretty significant.
Think so?
I think so.
United has 90.
Really?
Huh. Really, really. I mean, that's, again, what's currently filed in the schedule today through end of schedule, and who the hell knows what'll ever, what operates where and how. But
yeah.
I would argue it's easier to get puddle jumpers in and out of Philly right now than out of Newark, so you can have a lot of smaller markets.
Yeah.
And a lot fewer delays.
Maybe airspace delays.
Yeah.
So, JetBlue. We're recording this week, so next Wednesday will be the inaugural flight, August 11th. I'm booked on it, so I'm going to London, hooray. And for the month of September, JetBlue is dropping to 4 days a week. And this was triggered in part by the borders aren't open yet, we don't have access, and can't get through. People aren't buying tickets because of quarantine rules. And then 2 days or a day after JetBlue announced they were removing those flights from the schedule, the UK said, "Oh, actually, Americans can show up if they're fully vaccinated without quarantining."
So do you think that they put flights back on the schedule after this?
They're not going to. They were asked and said we're not gonna. So it's not happening, but it's going to be interesting to see. They did say, I think, that sales doubled the day after they pulled away the day after the rule changed, but they didn't say what the base was. So if they were selling 10 seats a day, now they're selling 20. That's still not enough to bring flights back.
Yeah. That's got to be a kick, though. If you're looking at it, you're like, dang it. Yeah. Are you excited for the inaugural?
I'm excited for the inaugural. I'm excited to see what it's like, just the overall service experience. I think there's the idea of sort of the order your economy class meal on the screen. So the chicken or beef question is you fill it out on the screen and then they give it to you as they walk down the aisle. I think it'll be real interesting to see how that goes, and if it's obviously the first flight I can't judge too much, but I'm worried how slow that service is going to be.
Yeah.
Right. My threshold is always, can I be done with the meal service by Halifax? It's a joke, so you would joke, but when you're looking at the map while you're flying, if my plan for a transatlantic flight from Boston to New York is need to be done by Halifax, or there's no chance of sleeping right.
Yeah.
And that's the cutoff for 3.5 hours if you're lucky. Maybe 4. So,
do you really even have a meal on a transcontinental East Coast? I always avoid that.
I don't. I haven't eaten one in years. And so it's also the problem. And it's a 10 o'clock departure or 10:10 departure for JetBlue. So no one should be needing to grab dinner at that point in my mind. It should be express service at best, and most people just be asleep. But at the same time, it's an inaugural flight, and it's going to be a thing, and you got to wear a mask on it, so I'm not sure how well I'm going to sleep in that. And so, the whole... It's going to be an interesting experience. I normally would, book myself for things to do immediately upon arrival. Any day I go to Europe, and I'm definitely not on this trip. I'm booking myself an entire afternoon of nothing to go take a nap.
Are you... You're in Mint, though, right?
So I'm in economy going over.
Okay.
And economy, the flight does appear to be sold out. It's 111 out of 114 seats sold in economy, and the last 3 seats are crew rest for flight attendants. And then I want to say 18 of 24 sold in Mint, but or booked in Mint this was from a couple days ago, but not those seats. They think but they're not selling any of the other 6. I think it's reserved for whatever internal usage that they have.
Press or something.
What's really funny, though, is a couple days before they changed the rule and had, and all this other stuff, and they announced that they were cutting flights, there were seats for sale. Seats had opened back up, and I think, my either, randoms bought tickets or some media who were we probably can't go because we can't stay, where all of a sudden oh, actually we can get in now. We are going to take the media tickets you were offering or something like that. So,
yeah.
And also inaugurals are always exciting and fun, and this is going to be a big deal for JetBlue one way or another.
What terminal are you using at Heathrow?
2. I am in Mint on the way home.
Okay, so for the daytime flight,
for the daytime flight, I got the Mint Studio or whatever, the big seat. So
that's probably a better way to experience it anyway, right? Because it's daytime, you want to stay awake anyway, and maybe take a short nap.
Yeah,
and you're just gonna be sleeping on the way over. So,
well, I hope so. Except who the hell knows what's going to happen?
As long as you're not in a middle seat, just put your eye mask down and put your...
Yeah, no, I got my window seat. I'm going to be fine, but it's also I don't know, I just feel there's the risk of hubbub and commotion on board. I'm remembering back to the KLM MD-11 final flight that I did, where a group of 30 or 20 of us that actually cared about it being the final flight sort of stood in galley spaces and had small parties the entire night rather than fall asleep, and got shushed repeatedly from various people on board. But whatever.
As you should.
Absolutely, we deserved it. There will be no gathering in the galley on this flight, I'm sure.
Yeah. Delta has extended status for their, I guess, all their elites.
Everybody.
Do United and American follow?
Would you?
I think you have to at this point.
Well, you don't have to do anything.
Well, but to save face.
But maybe not, right? It all depends on what you've had from a consumption standpoint, right? If you've got engaged folks, you don't need to extend status. The only reason you didn't, but United did extend GS.
That's it, exactly. So their most loyal in their mind customers aren't flying.
But what about the rest of the ranks?
I don't know, but I'm just saying.
I don't either. I'm just like, that's the point, right? You don't want to. If you've got enough people who are earning it, then you don't really need to extend status.
Yeah, I'm torn on this. United had some statistic out a couple weeks ago about something with their top elites and whatever that now I'm not remembering. But it was something about, they're seeing actually decent traction in the recovery there. I do wonder how much, though, like, making this decision in mid-July seems premature to me. Right? You're basically telling all your business travelers, don't worry about having to get back on the road in Q4 or after post-Labor Day, which is fine, and, like, reassuring to a lot of people. And if, my father is a Delta medallion and has been forever because we grew up in the South, and so fine. He was very excited, but also very confused because the website didn't update immediately. So I told him, don't worry, because he's been asking me, what do I do? I'm like, don't worry about it, even before they extended this, because it's stupid to worry about it. But when I told him his was extended, he sent me a screenshot saying, no, it's not yet. It's like, take a deep breath, it'll happen, don't worry about it. But, like, there's people like that who are super happy. If you read, the Twitters, most people are like, yay, this is super great for the frequent flyers. And then you read people wondering from the loyalty program side of, like, how much are you giving away? What are you actually getting in return for continuing to give away status for 3 years? I will say one of the interesting things about this version of the extension is, so it's full status extension and rollover of additional points. So Delta did the thing last year where whatever you had earned already would just roll over and it would be fine. They're continuing the rollover. So if you earned 20,000 points last year and 20,000 points this year, you're going to start next year at 40 already. On top of that, if you earn status this year, you also get it, but you'll be prioritized above those who are quote-unquote, extended status for upgrades. So there is a little twist there. What
do you think about that, Fuzz?
I mean, I think that's actually good. I've been saying that they're disincentivizing the people who are actually flying.
Yeah. And I agree. I think, like I said, I think it was too early to make the decision, and I wonder just how much they need to give in. Obviously they don't talk to each other about what levels those are at, but I can't believe that there's that much discrepancy between the airlines in terms of what the numbers are, especially because no one's really got a big long-haul network right now.
But, what I would argue is one of the things that, Delta has a history of doing a lot of connecting traffic, and the behavior that I've seen of myself and others is people just want a nonstop.
Yeah.
And so they might have a more adverse impact, because if you look at where their hubs are, there isn't nearly as much point-to-point traffic from where their hubs are versus where some of American or United's hubs are.
You can go anywhere you want as long as you're willing to connect in Atlanta.
Exactly. You could be on your way to hell and you're going to go through Atlanta.
That's right. And Grand Cayman, but whatever. Sorry, there's a town on the north end of Cayman Island called Hell. Little post office and everything. That's a good point, though. I hadn't thought about that angle on it. People are definitely switching more towards nonstop flights. So Delta's, 80% connecting over Atlanta, or whatever that number used to be. Traffic could be impacted greater than others.
I mean, it's interesting to me too that how much Delta is using wide bodies domestically right now, just to hubs like Atlanta to Portland is a 764.
San Diego Atlanta's into 330. That was shocking.
Yeah.
I looked it up because John was asking about he noticed the Delta thing the other day. So 2 years ago it was 6 757s and 737s, and this year it's 3 767s. So it's fewer seats, but it's wide bodies.
Yeah,
for Portland.
Yeah. And I think Minneapolis to Portland's an A330, and they used to do some of that to rotate the planes because they were using an A330 to Amsterdam, or they were using 76s to Tokyo and stuff. But they're not doing that right now. So
no, this isn't. This isn't about getting the planes in, because they're doing it to a whole bunch of cities like Fosnay, San Diego. I put maps up the other day on my Twitter feed. There's a whole bunch of them.
Which is, it's kind of the opposite of United and American. I guess American's doing it somewhat to Anchorage, but other places they're not using. They've always used wide bodies like Miami to LA and stuff. But
so Miami to LA has been mixed in the past, because when I took the flight, I had to do it on a 321 shitty version. And I ended up in a middle seat because I took the earlier flight standby, so yay me. But the Miami to Boston gets a couple 777s a day now.
What?
Yeah. So American, let me see if I can find my little map of all of these. American is definitely doing more than United. United is almost all just hub to hub. There's a handful of, I think, and it's the JFK routes, which is hard to get too excited about. There's everybody has them to San Juan.
Yep.
All three. But yeah, it's really is interesting to see where they're flying. But yes, Delta has by far the most sort of destinations. Here we go. Delta has, from what I can see, Seattle. Well, Seattle's a hub. Portland's to Denver, Las Vegas, Los Angeles is a hub. San Francisco, San Diego, Phoenix. A weird Cincinnati hop from Atlanta. And apparently some Atlanta-Boston flights are a wide body also, and a couple from Orlando as well.
That could be rotation, though, because aren't they still doing Boston to...
That's true. They did bring back the Boston to Europe. They have those. American has some Las Vegas, Anchorage, like you said. I don't know why I left some of these on here. Miami to Boston.
Las Vegas to Anchorage or Los Angeles?
No, sorry. Las Vegas to Chicago and to DFW is on a wide body. And this is also it's actually for the Monday of this week. I looked up August 2nd schedule just because you got to put some date on there.
You have a link to this, right? We can put this in the show notes.
Yeah, if I remember to find that.
Yeah. I mean, this comes back to kind of where's the demand? I mean, it's like Lufthansa using 748s to...
Malaga.
Yeah. It's where the demand is. So I'll put the plane there. Tell me about American and JetSmart. What is this about?
It's a damn good question. I can tell you what's happening. I'm not entirely sure I can tell you what it's about. Sorry, I'm making a note to make sure I include that map. The American Airlines and JetSmart have a strategic agreement. American is taking a stake in JetSmart. JetSmart is a ultra low-cost carrier based in Chile that flies in Chile and Argentina, and then has a couple hops into very little bits of service into Peru and Colombia, but mostly, and a couple into Brazil, but mostly within Chile and then a little bit in Argentina. So, the easy answer is this is the version of they lost LATAM a couple years ago. This was almost certainly going to happen anyways because they wanted a partner down there. They already have Gol in Brazil, so this gets them more connectivity on the other side of the Andes or further south or whatever. The bigger picture is the Advantage program is going to become the frequent flyer program for JetSmart, as I'm reading it. And because JetSmart doesn't have one right now, because a lot of ultra low-cost carriers don't. Also, Americans making a strategic investment to help expand JetSmart in South America, which is amusing in some ways because JetSmart is mostly owned by Indigo Partners, which is the company that owns or is the company behind JetSmart, Wizz Air, Frontier, and Viva Aerobus. Viva Aerobus, I think, is right. Their Mexican arm. I'm less certain about that last one. I'm pretty sure that's right, though. But yeah, so somehow American bought into it, that this was a smart strategic investment. So, there's plenty of reasons to wonder, gosh, American is still losing money even with, billions, hundreds of millions of dollars in payroll support from the U.S. government. Are they really making a smart choice going and buying a chunk of an airline in South America right now?
Yeah.
So, yay.
What do you think, Fuzz?
Logic generally does not apply to airlines.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people oh God, what's going to happen when someone shows up off a business class seat and ends up in, a middle, slimline, 28-inch pitch, whatever. And my response to that is the same thing would have happened on LATAM, because that's what LATAM also does down there.
Yeah.
The number of seats, LATAM does have a Eurobiz product on its short-haul flights. Right, so blocked middle seat. So there's an opportunity for a sort of premium-ish option, and I'm sure JetSmart could do something similar. They may even already have it. I haven't looked that close at their offerings, but it's I don't know. That part doesn't worry me as much. There's enough people that understand how ancillary fees and everything else work now that no one's going to be surprised or that surprised if they buy it as a standalone ticket and it's something completely different. Also, the U.S. carriers have all the same ancillary fees. They just don't use them quite as much. So, I don't know, the loyalty side of this really is interesting to me. I'm really interested. I'm very curious to see how JetSmart using Advantage as its loyalty program plays out.
I guess one of the things, in regards to low-cost carriers particularly, they've seen a massive uptick over the last few years, and they've done well even through the pandemic. It's a cyclical business. At some point, it's going to reverse. Right? We've seen this... in our own lives, we've probably seen a few cycles. We know it's a cyclical business. It hits the rock bottom at some point and often falls off a cliff. So why, It's like buying when it's at a high. Why would you?
Are you, though? I mean, would you not say that the industry's at the bottom right now?
For the low-cost carriers, I don't think they're at the bottom compared to what the majors are, right? Most of the low-cost carriers aren't hedged on international nearly like the majors.
Sure, but it's not like they're doing great. I mean, Ryanair, it was down 30%, 40% off of its max operations. And that's now that things are better again. When borders were closed in Europe, they also were shut down hard, running tiny fragments of their operations. I don't know how small I mean, also, let's be clear, JetSmart has only like a dozen or so planes right now. They just happen to have 60 on order, or 70 on order. But with Chile closed, they were doing a tiny chunk of what they were doing. And even if LCCs and ULCCs are doing better than the legacy carriers, outside the United States and China, and Russia, there isn't really a lot of happy stories in even domestic markets right now. It just happens to be the really big ones are doing better.
But they're still priced higher than they were in the last, even at the rock bottom where we've hit in the last 15, 16 months for airline stocks, they are still 3-4x of when the last bottom. And I'd argue that's because of all the CARES Act funding and all that, which is why they didn't truly hit rock bottom.
Sure.
And at some point that will expire, and if business hasn't returned, it leads one to wonder, is it a good time to invest?
Yeah, and again, I mean, the international markets is a whole different world compared to the CARES Act and the PSP funding and whatnot. Right? It's not like JetSmart's got a guy walking around at the airport holding up a big sign that says "Thank you for flying with us," like United has at LA. Which is a whole different funny story. But I don't know. I think I do agree with you. Certainly within the U.S. market, it's a very different scene. I think international airlines, they've definitely had plenty of problems, and several low-cost carriers around the world have gone out of business, or bankrupt in the past 16 months, where that hasn't really happened in the U.S. at all.
Yeah,
because of the government support or lack thereof. So,
high-speed rail coming to Uzbekistan, it's in Uzbekistan.
It's there.
It's a Spanish train, right, that they took delivery of. And it started service, and it's pretty cool. You can get from Tashkent to, is it Samarkand in like 2 hours or something?
It's an amazing service. I'm super jealous.
I mean, now you don't have to fly between those. That's the big thing.
That's the whole point.
Yep. And are you going to go take it, Seth, when next time you get a chance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. Yeah, I'm super excited by this, actually, like irrationally so. Also, I've kind of wanted to visit Uzbekistan. I mean, it's this sort of Central Asia, the stands, if you will, as a part of the world that I haven't spent enough time in and have tried a couple times to sort of start putting something together, and that's sort of my next big goal. But just seeing that sort of modern infrastructure coming along is really neat.
Yeah, for sure.
And saddening living here and knowing it's never going to happen.
I mean, maybe they'll bring high-speed service to New Hampshire someday.
I mean, I'd settle for high-speed service from Boston.
Part of the problem is we're, as a country, we're just too big.
Yes, but there are absolutely regional chunks where it could work and could be very effective if it wasn't for the fact that, and I will acknowledge, like, one part of the challenge is getting access to land to build new right-of-ways and lay new track. You're building, it works because there's density, but to do that, you got to build through that density, and nobody wants it.
But you know what's funny? You bring that up, but, having driven around a fair bit, so I've been doing a lot of driving lately, but there's so many abandoned, unused right-of-ways that we could use that we don't.
Yeah.
Right? If you think,
but where do they go?
Well, I mean, I can tell there's probably 5 or 6 between New York and Philadelphia. Because you have to remember, right, going back 100 years ago, you didn't move stuff via truck. You moved them via train. And there's all these ex-industrial areas in these places from a lot of the industry had moved out of the city into the burbs, but they were connected by train. And individual railroads built their own trails. Exactly.
Tracks, not centralized planning.
So those right-of-ways are all there. It's just either the ones that the companies that own them are not willing to share them, or no one wants to invest the money in rehabbing them to bring them to service.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And also, like, part of what it takes to make high-speed rail work is very flat, very straight lines.
Yep. Right.
Which the Connecticut coast does not offer, for example. This is my thing, is the western or eastern Connecticut is some of the most gorgeous right-of-way in the Amtrak network. It's up there with the southern half of the coaster between San Diego and LA. But that's because it follows the coastline and has to go much slower than normal because of it.
Yeah. It's cutting through. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I think, some places where we're ripe for it. I mean, Texas has talked about doing high-speed rail for a while. Yep. And Foz actually just mentioned that he had a delayed flight from Dallas to Houston and drove that. That's a 4-hour drive. Can you imagine if that had been a high-speed train?
90 minutes and done.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. Right, Foz?
Yeah, but it also depends on where I have to pick up the train and where I'm going, right? Is it end-to-end? What does it work out to be? Like, it's like going to D.C. or Boston if you live somewhere between New York and Philadelphia. It's often faster to drive than it is to fly or take a train. That's because you have to calculate the full end-to-end time.
Yeah, well, we talked, I think, last week a little bit about the seaplane out of Boston, and that's part of their calculation is that by saving, security and all those other timings and getting to and from the airports instead of being, right in town, so to speak, it's going to be worth a premium price. We'll have to see how that goes. That also starts this week.
Yeah.
Now, on a side note, Steve, I know, Steven, I'm sure you've done the Dallas-Houston drive. I don't know if Seth has. I was amazed by seeing the Buc-ee's.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure it's changed. Back when I did that drive, you got 20 minutes south of Dallas, and you didn't see anything for 3.5 hours.
There's two, but I've never seen a gas station that big. It was like, holy God, probably 30 or 40 islands.
Yep.
That seems excessive.
Oh, it was... I'm like, I wish I had stopped because I feel like it was a rite of pilgrimage to get in there.
I don't know. When we moved from up to New Hampshire, we drove up from Florida and made the car, timed it just right that we could get to south of the border to refuel the car, and rolled in on fumes, but whatever. Having now done it, I can't say that I'm sad I had never before. So, just put that out there.
Nordica is operating its own flights, or is going to operate their own flights?
Yeah, it seems to be the era of small... This sort of goes back to the conversation about the regional airlines before, and smaller airlines. Regional airlines trying to take a go of it for themselves. So Nordica was a regional carrier operating in Europe, and is now going to operate out of Estonia, I think. Plus still do some of its other markets. So they used to operate for LOT.
Okay.
And they're going to operate now from Tallinn and run a triangle within Sweden, it looks like. Or flag stops along Sweden. And Gällivare, Arvidsjaur, and Stockholm.
Places, I know one of those cities.
Yeah. And the CEO says the new code will be used for both charters and regular flights from Tallinn once the market recovers and demand and the effects from the effects of the pandemic and demand returns. So, but they will still provide subcontracted out service as well, operating for other people. I think this is basically, the company has said, okay, well, the big airline canceled our contract and we still have these planes and pilots. Let's see if we can make a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing ExpressJet is doing. They're back.
Again.
Once again, United has canceled its service. Last time it was Continental. But now they're going to try to go operate on their own again.
We're not dead yet.
I give them credit. This time they're only going to try to do it with 10 planes, not 65. So they might have a chance.
Where are they doing this out of? Is it Boston again?
Well, it wasn't Boston last time, was it?
It was. Yeah, they had flights out of Boston.
They had flights out of everywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, they had a huge map, but they weren't based up in... They were they had a hub in San Diego.
Yeah.
They did a lot of West Coast stuff, random secondary cities. No, they haven't announced where they're going to fly from yet. That's coming in 2 or 3 weeks, they've said. But they do expect to begin operations this quarter, and this quarter only has 7 weeks left. 7.5 weeks left. 8 weeks, right?
Yep.
That means September 30th, so they said this quarter. So we'll see how that goes.
Interesting. Allegiant.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about Allegiant.
New loyalty program? You excited for that?
Well, I was thinking about taking that Santa Maria flight.
And imagine if you could earn some always points.
Always points. Can I use them at some third-tier hotel to stay with a bunch of people I don't want to know?
Only during an irregular operation.
So they're spelling it ALLWAYS. So all the ways you can use the points because they don't want to be confused with feminine products. I don't know. But also, it's going to be a straight revenue-based program. They basically came on. It was kind of funny. I actually don't know which guy said it. I have one of the quotes in the from their earnings call, though, when they started talking about it recently was, basically, we've talked to a bunch of our frequent flyers, and almost all of them are also members, or 30 to 40% of our customers are also members of SkyMiles, Rapid Rewards, Advantage, etc. And 90% of them said they'd never flew enough to get any benefit from it. So we don't want to take that approach. And I certainly understand that. I think 90% of people who are members of airline loyalty programs probably don't get real good value out of it, whether they get some value or not. I think it's probably a questionable use of energy to focus extensively on it, let's say. But what the thing he goes on to say is the thing that really pisses people off is that the point values always are moving. So maybe a reward is 20,000 points today and it's 60,000 points tomorrow. And we're going to fix that by just making all the points worth a certain amount of money, ignoring the fact that the reason that the point values are different is because the tickets cost different, and Allegiance tickets also cost different amounts. So some days it's going to be some number of points, and some days it's going to be triple that. So there's a little bit myopic, perhaps, not quite recognizing what he's talking about and how it's really going to play out. But also, it'll be interesting. The other thing that they did say, though, and this is, I think we may have talked about last week, how it coordinates with, or did we talk about the thing that they're doing with Ticketmaster?
No. Yeah, we did a little bit, I think.
We did, right? So, yeah, so they signed a deal with Ticketmaster and Live Nation where, like, if you buy tickets to a show, you'll get prompted to, hey, do you also need a flight to get there? And so that's going to come from the Ticketmaster side. And then from the Allegiant side, if you buy a trip, they want to eventually be able to say, while you're in destination X on dates Y through Z, here are your options for things to do. And instead of just selling you a hotel package, also potentially sell you tickets to those same shows. So what's going to be interesting, and they're not ready to launch that yet. That's a down the line roadmap item. Someone's got to develop that interactivity and systems communications first. But also, in theory, the always points that you get are good for anything you can buy on the Allegiant website. So that would include hotels, that would include flights, it would even potentially include these concert tickets. So it's not, I don't want to say it's the worst program ever, but without knowing any of the numbers and what the value looks like, I'm sure it's not going to be a huge... Shouldn't say sure. I find it unlikely it will be a hugely valuable program, but it's also not the worst thing I've ever heard of.
It looks like you're flying to Branson. Would you like to buy tickets to a Woody Guthrie concert? That's how I see it.
Thanks, Clippy?
Yeah, I was going to say, you just sound like Clippy.
I'm sure that's what you were thinking.
Yes.
The other thing that I put on here, and I didn't put any details in the notes, so surprise for both of you guys, Chase is going to become a transfer partner for Aeroplan.
Interesting.
Or Aeroplan is going to become a transfer partner for Chase. I don't know which way you want to read that.
Did we not know that already?
It has not been official yet, certainly. It seems like one of those things that should have been coming all along. Maybe it's not that. Maybe we knew that half. They're also launching a credit card in the U.S., though.
Yeah, the TD... I guess I didn't know. I know that the TD card has not done too well.
Yeah.
Apparently, people at TD didn't even know they offered that credit card.
Well, that's awkward.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wait, we have one?
Yeah, so here we go. Sorry, last year they officially announced the partnership with Chase. As of Tuesday, August 3rd, Aeroplan will become a transfer partner in the Chase Ultimate Rewards program. Points will be a one-to-one transfer. Stay tuned for the launch of our new U.S. credit card with Chase later this year. The wait list will open on August 3rd, and members who sign up for the wait list will get an additional 10,000 Aeroplan points in addition to the launch offer.
Interesting. I like that it's like so exclusive. It's gonna be a wait list.
This is the second wait list for a loyalty credit card we've had on the show in like 6 weeks or 4 weeks. When did we talk to Dave Canty about Built? That one's a Velvet Rope too.
I'm clearly not elite enough for this. So
yeah, and I think it's interesting. I mean, assuming the earning is typical for a Chase card with the Airplane program, I do actually think there's some potential value there, especially for people who like long-haul rewards.
Yeah. Is there any value in it having a Chase co-branded airline credit card versus a Sapphire?
You mean given that all the partners are transfer partners?
Yes.
Probably not.
That's what I keep coming back to.
Do you think Air Canada gets some kind of cut of revenue if it's
branded on the co-brand card? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
So that could be the push, right? Is that they're like, oh, we can sell this to our members, and we.
Sure,
and we
I think Foz was thinking about it as a consumer.
Yeah, as a consumer, what's the advantage?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one.
Arguably, things like your free check bag and whatever. Right, there are some airline-specific benefits that sometimes play out better than if it's just for right. If for just earning points, I think you're probably right that having a more fungible program of a bank program points is generally better. But if this gets you waivers of different things that you actually need, again, who knows?
That's fine. You can get the credit card, but to put spend on it versus a Sapphire. Like, I have a United credit card. I do not use it.
Yeah, same.
I don't even have it, so there you go. Because I wasn't putting any spend on it and didn't need free bags.
So I want to go back to the Allegiant thing real quick, though. So
okay.
we're saying that Allegiant's going to have this loyalty program, and the thing that stuck out to me was them saying this percentage of our flyers are members of another program but see no value in it.
Right.
But isn't that based on just like your customer base is probably they signed up for it and they've flown United once? What kind of value are they going to get out of it?
Yes.
So I don't know. It's kind of disingenuous.
So the question is, if they also only fly Allegiant once, what value are they going to get there?
Exactly.
So the theory and that they came up with, and he actually, big stretch, but described it as similar to the Apple credit card. So it's trying to make that leap, but we're cool like Apple, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think of when I fly. When I think about booking an Allegiant ticket for $58, I'm thinking of Apple.
Yeah, is because the points are immediately redeemable. It's sort of like the Norwegian Rewards program as well, and you can redeem them like for your 58 cents off your next flight. So you absolutely get something on your next spend rather than having to wait to redeem and accrue even more if you want to. That's the hope there.
Gotcha.
I agree with you that, like, listen, every time I booked a new Norwegian flight, I'd always redeem my old points because Lord knows I was never collecting a lot of them.
And Lord knows how long they were going to be in business, but
right. So, yeah. But, like, I do understand that, but there's also, like, once it just becomes, a 1% rebate or whatever it is, it loses a little bit of, I'll say, the fun of having the program, and it just becomes, when it becomes transactional, I think the challenge there is it doesn't have the emotional attachment that a program should want the loyalty to have, right? You want your members to go out of their way to be irrational in their engagement with you, and a straight rebate rarely does that.
Yeah. They'll look at where can I get the most value for that rebate. And go to the...
No, well, when it's a straight rebate, they just click and use.
Oh, that's right.
They're right, there's no value. It's just 1% back on whatever I'm spending. Like, it's a penny a point or whatever it is, like, okay. Unless they're, Spirit has similar, but did some interesting things on the earn side, at least, where, like, ancillary fees earn double and some other things like that. So it wasn't a straight one-to-one sort of play. And maybe Allegiant does similar. They haven't released details on the earn and burn rates. They've just talked about what it's going to be. Yeah. But...
I'm tempted because I want that Santa Maria flight. I want to fly it from Portland. I'm tempted to check a bag. Just, for my $58 fare, I want to pay like $200 for a check bag. Just to feel that like crushing blow that most passengers have to feel.
You are a weird man.
Why? For the giggles, my friend. I'm just kidding. I was trying to be sarcastic.
Do you need a hug?
Sometimes I feel like it.
Do we need to call Jess and have her give you a hug?
No, she's not going to do that. She'd be like, you can wallow in it.
Wow.
Last topic I want to talk about is something that I've seen kind of thrown out there a little bit recently. The idea that with us being knee-deep in the Delta variant of coronavirus, should the airlines require vaccination for domestic travel? And some of the thoughts of this are, people flying that are unvaccinated are basically, they could be potentially moving the virus around. And now we have these vaccines at work. And is this a way to incentivize people getting vaccinated? What do you guys think?
I'll offer a little bit of background of what's happening in other countries. Certainly, right? France is not for flights, but if you want to take the trains or go to restaurants or theater or anything else, has basically made it a requirement or very frequent testing. And the tests, I think, are no longer going to be free. So you'd have to pay for it to get that. I believe I saw just now that Saudi Arabia is talking about if you want to leave the country, you have to be vaccinated.
Interesting.
So, and for transit, I think there was something about if you're transiting hotspot countries. So there's big challenges, and the UK has been struggling with this as well for like people transiting Dubai, Doha, Abu Dhabi, and risk of transmission because so many of those passengers are coming from less vaccinated areas. Less vaccinated countries, that if you transit one of those countries, you're sort of red listed quarantine and strict rules and interesting challenges. So that is what is happening in other places as well. I certainly, in some ways, I think it would be, they were allowed to decide that they wanted to require masks before the government said you have to wear masks. It was a fight then, and it will be a fight now if they did it again without the government's backing. But I think they certainly can. It's a question of, is that a smart business decision or a smart public health decision? Is probably two different answers.
Yeah.
I would say that if the airlines were to go down that path, they would put more people in cars, because if you choose not to get vaccinated, you're not going to get vaccinated to get on a plane.
Yeah.
Really?
I would venture to guess, because we have the ability. Most people in the States have cars. Most people would just say, I'll just drive. I know people who just choose to drive now because they don't want to deal with the mask stuff. So it would just push those people further away.
That's an interesting. I think that I have a feeling that unless it's mandated by the government, like the government does a similar thing with the masks for travel, I feel like the airlines aren't going to do it, because they're right now they're seeing an uptick in people buying tickets. Things are looking up for them domestically, especially that them enforcing their own vaccination rules, I think would be a negative for them. That's kind of how.
Yeah.
From a financial
for business.
Yeah. I think they have a moral. Well, there's a different moral question there, but
there's a point about whether those customers will still be around, and
yes, long term, yeah, that kind
longer term.
So yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I mean, there was someone saying, this could be maybe this comes after the FDA fully approves the vaccines, so it's predicted to happen before the end of the year. So if the FDA approved all the vaccines, or at least one or two of them, then there could be some kind of mandate for domestic travel and international travel as well.
And let's be clear, they're approved in terms of no longer emergency use authorization, which they are approved, but not. They're legal to use. It's just not.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, they're fully approved by the FDA, not in an emergency status. Yeah. And that's predicted to happen in the next few months. So if that happened, I think I could see the airlines or the government stepping in and saying, okay, look, we're not going to have people moving around the country on airlines. If you want to drive, that's fine. If you want to do a transcon in a car, have at it. Cannonball run. Anyway. Yeah, so we got some bonus topics after this. We're going to talk about some firearms, because who doesn't love guns and planes, baby? Alaska, an American, bringing back hot meals, and then Lufthansa bringing back some sleeper cabins. And so if you're a Patreon subscriber, stay tuned for that. If you're not a Patreon subscriber and you want to hear that, you can join Patreon and hear that extra content. But until next time, you can find us on Twitter @DotsLines, morelines.com. Yeah, thanks for listening, and happy travels. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Catch you later.